During the 70s and 80s, Barbara Mandrell was famous for more than just her country songs. The scene was set by her. She revolutionized the role of women in country music with a voice that could captivate an entire nation and put anyone to sleep. She was more than just gifted. Her audacity shone through while, without remorse, and with complete command of her public persona and message. People really adored her. People in her field held her in high esteem. Barbara Mandrell appeared to be perfect for a while. However, a shift occurred afterwards. Almost glacially. Softly, the light dimming down. The lady who had once been the center of attention on national television, award events, and the charts started to recede. Was it the glare of stardom, an unseen power struggle, or the rejection of the industry she had helped create? You know what? It's a lot more unexpected than everyone had anticipated. Barbara Mandrell's current way of life looks like this. And you won't believe her story. She became famous at such a young age, trust me. Houston, Texas was the site of Barbara Mandrell's birth on Christmas Day, 1948. Mary Ellen Mandrell was a dedicated music instructor, and her husband Herbie was a passionate police officer. From the moment Barbara was born, she grew up in a musical household. Music was more than just heard in her home, it was experienced. The family eventually settled in Texarkana, the same place where her younger sisters Arlene and Louise were born. There Barbara's musical roots started to blossom into something more substantial. There were early indications that she had a natural ear for music, and she sang frequently at home. She had an innate affinity for music and harmony from a young age, and, to the delight of making music, her innate musical ability was more than just a talent. Her early public performances included a stirring gospel song that made an impact at her family's church, when she sang for the first time in front of an audience. However, her abilities extended beyond only singing. A genuine musical prodigy Barbara was. She mastered music theory and accordion playing well before entering first grade. All because of the early advice she received from her mother. Her father opened a music store in Oceanside, California, when she was 6 years old, and the family moved there. Because of this, Barbara had even more opportunities to play and rehearse instruments. She began playing the saxophone after joining the school band in elementary school. During this period, she also began studying the steel guitar with a relative. Close associate. She just needed a year before country singer Joe Mayuse heard her perform at a Chicago music trade convention. That was the turning point in her incredible career as a country music artist. The music of Barbara Mandrell. New development. When it came to country music, Barbara Mandrell got her start sooner than others. She joined country singer Joe Mathis on his Las Vegas act in 1960 at the tender age of 11. And her steel guitar playing stunned the crowd. Mathis promptly identified, thanks to her abilities, and landed her a regular role on the country music TV show Town Hall Party in California. Despite Mandrell's initial isolation in a male-dominated industry, she came to realize throughout her time on the show that there were other female instrumentalists making waves as well. It signaled a new beginning to her, musically and psychologically. Mandrell would hone her performance abilities with each summer performance in Sin City. Legendary performers like Johnny Cash and Patti Cline were among her tourmates by 1962. Hotel rooms were divided between Mandrell and Cline during the tour. She played the steel guitar with an assuredness and maturity that belied her years, and she shared the stage with legendary artists like Tex Ritter, Little Jimmy Dickens, and Red Foley. Barbara played steel guitar in the Mandrell family band that her parents had founded by the time she was 14 years old. Mary, playing the piano, while Dad Herbie sang lead. 2 guest musicians joined the ensemble as well. Barbara's future husband, drummer Ken Dudney, was one of them. As a unit, the band performed across the U.S. at various military posts, often integrating Beatles songs into their concerts, provided a fresh and varied audience for their shows. Mandrel furthered her musical arsenal at this period by learning to play the banjo and bass guitar. Throughout her adolescence, she achieved great success in other domains outside from music. She participated actively in the community and was named Miss Oceanside, California in 1965. School, where I was an active member of the symphony, student government, and marching band. Not long after she tied the knot with Ken Dudney, she received her high school diploma in 1967. Mandrel gave up performing and devoted herself to becoming a housewife full-time because she yearned for a peaceful household life. The journey to Vietnam to perform for American troops was her last gig with the family band. Her new husband's overseas deployment was revealed to her upon her return home. Mandrel went to see her parents in Nashville when she was lonely. They had moved there and were attending a performance under the Grand Ole Opry. She had a revelation while watching from the audience. She had no business being here. Observation wasn't her strong suit, she realized afterwards. The stage was her rightful position. Resolved to go back to. Her father is now overseeing her career as an entertainer, and she landed a spot in a performance at Printer's Alley in Nashville. She sang and played steel guitar throughout the performance. There were 6 record labels that took notice of the concert due to how remarkable it was. That being said, Columbia Records producer Billy Sherrill was observing and extended a recording deal to Mandrel. By 1969, she was all set to embark on her career as a recording artist, having formally signed with Columbia Records. Covers of R&B and soul songs were Mandrel's early musical focus. Her first single from Columbia, a cover of "I've Been Loving You Too Long to Stop Now" by Otis Redding, reached #1 on Billboard's country music chart. Her debut top 20 record was Billy Sherrill's "Playing Around with Love," which she released as her second single. Mandrel relocated to A to B, the records, which MCA subsequently purchased. She gained a wider audience and more success after collaborating with producer Tom Collins to incorporate pop country elements. Standing Room Only, her debut single for the company, became. It peaked at #5 on the Billboard country charts. After it came other hit songs like Midnight Angel and It's What Friends Are For. Collins assisted her in incorporating R&B elements into her music, which increased her commercial appeal. She graced Denise Lazel's Married, But Not to Each Other with her passionate renditions, and the Canadian and American country music charts saw Shirley Brown's Woman to Woman rocket into the top 5. Additionally, her debut single, Woman to Woman, made it onto the Billboard Hot 100. Both of her 1977 studio albums, number 6 and 7, featured these singles, which helped establish her place in the economic sector. Songs by Mandrel about adultery and complicated emotions reached their commercial peak in the late 1970s. One of her first singles to hit the country charts, RPM and Billboard, was 1978's sleeping single In a Double Bed. I achieved this feat quite rapidly. After that, she performed a seductive cover of Luther Ingram's If Loving You Is Wrong, I Don't Want to Be Right. This version reached the top of the country charts, as well as the Billboard Hot 100 and Canadian pop charts, where it remained for a while. Exquisite productions became Mandrel's trademark during her concerts as a prominent headline act. Among their highlights, she raised the bar for female country performers with her array of outfit changes, choreography that was both polished and innovative, and her demonstration of proficiency on numerous instruments. Her early 1980s musical shifts were met with mixed reviews, despite her meteoric rise to fame. Skeptics thought she had lost touch with her origins. According to one author, her records from that time were too polished and full of fluff, making them seem fake and unauthentic compared to more traditional country music. Spun Gold, her 1983 album, was characterized by another critic as an unusual fusion of disco gloss with country grit. Regardless of, while some criticized her, others heard the profound emotion in her music. Cultural critics have pointed out that many of her popular songs from the 1980s dealt with serious issues including poverty, broken relationships, and national pride. It was clear that Mandrell's music spoke to working-class people because of these issues. Held significant value within the genre. Barbara Mandrell was multi-talented from the start. She was a fearless innovator, a soulful singer, a stunning performer, and a pioneering steel guitarist. Her meteoric rise to fame, beginning as a juvenile prodigy, was packed with challenges, opportunities for growth, and resiliency. That was the one most important thing that set her apart. She was unyielding in her defiance. By going against the grain, Mandrell cemented her position in music history. Even in her private life, she exhibited that same fearlessness. For Barbara Mandrell, when it came to love affairs, she didn't care about following the rules. She lived life on her own terms. The romantic life of Barbara Mandrell. A fascinating and rich life has unfolded for Barbara Mandrell away from the limelight, which she has enjoyed for decades. She wed Navy pilot and musician Ken Dudney in 1967. Dudney was the band's drummer when he first joined the Mandrell family. Although it didn't begin like a fairy tale, their story became one in the end. They first crossed paths when Ken was 21 and Barbara was 14 years old through music. Ken had already committed to another woman at that time. However, it became evident that his feelings were intensifying after being in Barbara's company. After he broke off his engagement, their relationship blossomed. In light of, Barbara had already decided upon her lifelong goal, to marry Ken Dudney. By the time she graduated from high school, she spoke clean about how she had been eagerly anticipating their wedding day. Ken gave up his profession as a Navy pilot to be there for his wife and children after they got married, which was a huge sacrifice. The growing renown of Barbara. They did more than just pursue their ambitions. They created a life for themselves. Matthew, their first child, was born to them in 1970. In 1976, they welcomed a daughter, Jamie, and in 1985, they welcomed a youngest boy, Nathan. Ken was the rock for Barbara behind the scenes, helping to raise their children and deal with the stresses of celebrity, even while Barbara's name was in the spotlight at award shows and Mares. Once again, the Mandrell family was in the news in 1988. It had nothing to do with music though, this time. Their construction. The breathtaking log cabin mansion known as Fontanille is tucked away in the Tennessee hills. It was acknowledged as the biggest log cabin on the planet, boasting 6 bedrooms, 13 bathrooms, 2 kitchens, 5 fireplaces, and even a helicopter pad. After Barbara sold the mansion a number of years later, it became well-liked by visitors. This site features a variety of amenities such as a hotel, restaurant, concert venue, and indoor shooting range. After Si's stint managing human resources ended, she devoted herself to providing hope and healing to those battling addiction. At first glance, they appeared to be the epitome of an ideal American. Loved ones. Dedicated, tight-knit, and prosperous. However, a devastating incident rocked their foundation to its very core, hidden beneath the lovely houses and public smiles. What a tragic life Barbara Mandrell had. In 1984, on September 11th, a tragic turn occurred in Mandrell's life. The country music artist was engaged in a terrible head-on crash while driving near her home in Nashville with her 2 children. The effect of the crash would linger with her for years, even though it happened in a second. One Mark White, a college student of 19 years of age. Sadly, his death was instantaneous. Her 2 children were able to escape the accident unscathed, suffering only minor injuries. They were promptly discharged from the hospital, as stated in the police record, which states that White's vehicle had crossed the center line and collided with Mandrell's Jaguar XJ. On the other hand, Barbara wasn't that lucky. She suffered severe and potentially permanent damage. Suffered a femur fracture, ankle sprain, knee injury, and a severe concussion with temporary brain damage. The subsequent physical discomfort was excruciating, with her knee bearing the brunt of it. Experienced a great deal of trauma. With each passing day, she challenged herself to surpass her previous achievement. Refusing to allow her injury to define her, she struggles through physical treatment. Even more unsettling was the head damage. It changed her recollection and identity as a whole. She struggled for a while to re-establish a connection to her pre-accident self. The Barbara Mandrell who had formerly dominated the stage would sometimes speak of herself in the third person, using phrases like, "That was her," or "She did that," belonged to a different party altogether. She would need over a year to physically recuperate, and about 3 to completely restore her brain. She acknowledged that the ankle pain persisted for decades after the incident. How did she and her children escape certain death that fateful day? A hasty, unplanned choice. Barbara observed a driving automobile with children playing unbuckled in the back seat just moments before the accident. She was so alarmed by the sight that she buckled up and warned her own children to do the same. That modest deed, used extreme caution, ended up saving lives. After that, she had a strong personal connection to the issue of seat belts. She went on to become a vocal supporter of the need of using seat belts in subsequent years. Campaigning for arthritis and organ donation awareness, she also starred in TV ads warning Americans to fasten their seat belts. Served as the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration's honorary chairman in 1985. However, controversy still managed to find a way in, even with public backing. Tennessee law mandated that Barbara Mandrell submit a $10 report nearly 1 year following the tragic tragedy. 3. Suing the White family for $1 million, just so she may use her insurance to cover the costs. Despite the fact that her attorneys stressed that she had no animosity or desire for monetary compensation from the family. The public was outraged by the lawsuit. A lot of people missed the subtlety of the law. Taking a bereaved family to court was the only thing they witnessed. Years later, Barbara could comprehend the fury. She did concede that her reaction could have been similar if she had been in the public's position. Among the many difficult lessons that fame brought were given to her, brutal yet instructive, but she still wouldn't allow it to define who she was. Despite the widespread awareness of this tragedy, there is another that frequently goes unrecognized. The one that caused Barbara Mandrell to finally quit. Departing from her smash NBC variety show Barbara Mandrell and the Mandrell Sisters, which was one of her biggest achievements. While she was at the height of her fame in the 70s and 80s, Barbara Mandrell was known for more than just her country songs. Her extensive catalog of top 10 and #1 singles, many of which crossed top of the charts for popular music. Her beautiful voice and ability to blend genres made her the radio queen. Her music was certainly memorable, but it wasn't all. Her performance was the epitome of showmanship. Barbara's concerts were more than simply shows. These were enormous productions. Every performance was a spectacular display of glittering costumes, flawless choreography, and captivating on-stage presence. Marty Krofft, a producer at NBC, saw her magnetic personality and offered her a gig that very few country musicians had ever had, a primetime network television show. In her early rejection, she had declared, "No, I would never do a network television show. as she would later recollect. Even her father and she were worried it would hurt her singing career, but Croft wouldn't budge. Barbara finally gave in to multiple offers, and the rest is history in the world of television magic. Susan Mandrell, Barbara, and upon its NBC debut, the Mandrell sisters became an immediate smash. Louise and Earlene, Barbara's sisters, were the stars of an hour-long variety show that expertly combined live music with comedy sketches. The sisters had dynamic, playful, natural, and frequently funny chemistry. On most occasions, Barbara would act as sister who takes life seriously. As the narcissistic and alluring lead, Earlene fully embraced her character, while Louise provided the steadying musical accompaniment. In other words, this wasn't a trick. Each of the three sisters had a genuine talent for music. Astonishing crowds, Barbara performed the saxophone, piano, banjo, and steel guitar that she possesses. Arlene slayed the drums, and Louise showed off her banjo and fiddle skills. Ray Charles, Glenn Campbell, Bob Hope, and a slew of other famous faces were in line to participate on the show. At the end of each episode, while paying homage to the sisters' religious beliefs and her Southern heritage with an emotionally charged gospel medley, the show's abrupt cancellation after only 2 seasons stunned audiences of almost 40 million. And why is that? Barbara had reached her emotional and physical limits. At her breaking point, she was trying to balance the demands of her recording career with the brutal schedule of a weekly TV show. On set, some days lasted 14 to 16 hours straight. Particularly for her voice, it was a tremendous burden. Eventually, it was so bad that cortisone injections frequently needed to complete filming. At long last, medical professionals delivered a stern warning. She risked irreparable harm to her voice if she persisted. After much deliberation, Barbara finally decided to go away. In the midst of the glitz, glamour, clapping, and cheering, under the radar of the audience, Barbara Mandrell was fighting a secret war. She was under immense strain, exhausted, and terrified of letting her voice, which had propelled her career, slip away. Obstacles like these weren't limited to the workplace. These sacrifices were made from the heart. The cost of fame continued, as her path would eventually show. With the 2007 DVD release of The Best of Barbara Mandrell and the Mandrell Sisters show, fans were able to relive the golden age. It brought up fond memories of what set the program apart. All of Barbara's charisma, skill, sisterhood, and selflessness, even when it nearly shattered her, combined to make it an unforgettable experience. Barbara Mandrell ultimately decided for a different kind of after all the ups and downs in her profession and personal life, as well as the intense scrutiny of the limelight. Peace. One that let her recover, think, and relax, not one designed for admiration or cameras. Where does Barbara Mandrell reside now? You undoubtedly have a short list of names that comes to mind when you consider the most legendary female country singers of all time. Reba McEntire, Loretta Lynn, Dolly Parton, and Patti Cline. For decades, these icons were the standard bearers of the genre. Although Barbara Mandrell isn't quite as well known as she once was, she was once right there with the best of them. Mandrell was a true celebrity in the 70s and 80s, winning 2 Grammys and 2 Country Music Awards for Entertainer of the Year. She wowed listeners with her singing and her ability to play a wide variety of instruments, including steel guitar. In her primetime variety show with the Mandrell sisters, when her limitless energy and theatrical personality were on full display, and her saxophone. After a final performance at the Grand Ole Opry House in 1997, she walked away from it all, at the age of just 48, and she hasn't looked back since. After her public career came to an end, Barbara Mandrell chose a life away from the spotlight, devoting herself to her family, faith, and hobbies like gardening and painting. Why, though, would a celebrity so brilliant, when she was at her best, decide to disappear from the spotlight forever? Interestingly enough, tragic events and individual decisions both contribute to the solution. There was a blaze in Barbara Mandrell's career in 1984. She had made the transition to television with flying colors, producing hit tunes and garnering praises at every turn. However, on September 11, 1984, her life took a terrifying turn, when a terrible head-on crash near her Nashville home took her life. Mark White, the second car's driver, was 19 years old when he died in the collision. Among Mandrell's many injuries were a fractured leg and a severe concussion. In a tragic turn of events, two of her, along with her, the children in the car also suffered injuries. Even though they made it through, the family had a tough time getting back on their feet. For nearly 18 months, Mandrell suffered from a combination of physical and mental ailments that forced him to miss action. She was left with persistent problems with the nervous system and PTSD. There was a silver lining to her tragedy. It inspired her to become an outspoken supporter of the need of using seat belts. While her children were wearing seat belts at the time of the accident, she did confess that it wasn't a routine for her family. However, everything changed following. What happened? The wounds may have healed in due time, but navigating public opinion was a real challenge. $10 was filed by Mandrell and her spouse, Ken Dudney. The purpose of the $3 million lawsuit is not financial gain for White or his family, but rather to compel insurance to pay for damages and medical bills. Some of her followers were furious over the decision, bringing a damper to her otherwise pristine public image, even after their legal team explained it. Barbara Mandrell demonstrated the tenacity that had brought her fame despite the tragedy that befell her in the mid-1980s. She got back into music and kept releasing. Had #1 hits on the charts and achieved literary success with her autobiography, Get to the Heart, My Story. It was a bestseller for more than 3 months and was eventually made into a CBS television movie. However, Mandrell's focus started to change in the mid-1990s. It was in 1997 when she decided to leave the music industry permanently following an emotionally charged performance at the Grand Ole Opry. Taste of Country claims that she made the decision without being threatened by scandal, her diminishing popularity, or her health. What really mattered was something far more intimate and straightforward. She desired to be there for her loved ones. As a moving and symbolic way to close one chapter and begin another, Mandrell sold her cherished musical instruments. Despite a brief return to acting in 1998 to 1999 as Alex Mitchum on Sunset Beach, she progressively distanced herself from both Nashville and Hollywood, opting instead to in favor of leading a quiet, unassuming life away from the limelight. She has since returned to her home life, where she enjoys gardening, painting, spending time with family, and, on occasion, interacting with distant followers. Despite Barbara Mandrell's departure from the stage many years ago, her impact is still felt today. Her 2009 induction into the Country Music Hall of Fame was one of the genre's greatest accolades. At the ceremony, fellow musicians such as Michael McDonald and Reba McEntire spoke moving tributes, while her sister Louise Mandrell paid tribute with a moving performance. Mandrell thanked the guy whose influence had been formative in her remarkable career throughout her remarks. Herbie Mandrell, her father and a longtime manager, had died away barely 2 months prior. She named him Mandrell and stated, "He taught me, guided me, and directed me. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for inducting the Mandrell name into the Hall of Fame. The public and fans were so kind and supportive in making our name known and popular, and I am truly grateful for that." Mandrell herself was very complimentary of the dance remix that Grammy-winning producer and DJ Dave Aud, known for reworking hits, by artists like Beyoncé and Rihanna, created in 2020, which brought the 1978 classic Sleeping Single in a Double Bed to a new generation of listeners. Excited? The arrangement and the beat really clash, and that's what brings me joy. Then in 2022, something truly remarkable occurred. Barbara Mandrell, who had been in retirement for nearly 30 years, returned to the Grand Ole Opry for a rare and moving performance to commemorate her 50th birthday anniversary with the esteemed institution. Even though she didn't sing, just being there sent shockwaves through the country music industry. Mandrell is the 105th oldest living inductee of the Opry, according to USA Today. As she took the stage, she reflected on her time as a member of the institution. Mandrell reaffirmed her deep and abiding love for country music, pushing back against critics who sometimes dismiss the genre. She also used the opportunity to reflect on her original 1972 induction, which she called one of the proudest moments of her career. The Grand Ole Opry feels comfortable and is home to her. Carrie Underwood, another country music star, paid tribute that night, saying, "She has been such an inspiration to me and so many others that stand on the shoulders of great artists like Mandrell." Mandrell's story was filled with passion as she told the audience this. "Whether you were there in person or watching from home, I felt so much love from each of you," Mandrell wrote on Instagram after the event, expressing her joy at the support she received from Underwood and other female artists. Underwood even stayed to watch Mandrell's soundcheck, showing her support in a warm and supportive way. "Of you, and I hope you understand the impact you had on me. The Opry has my eternal gratitude for their kind welcome and celebration of my return. I adore the Opry, as you well know." Even though Barbara Mandrell isn't as ubiquitous on country radio and TV as she once was, her legacy lives on. In a world that frequently demands continual reinvention and visibility, Barbara stands out. Her story is one of stunning success, unspeakable tragedy, quiet reinvention, and enduring grace. Even though she may prefer the quiet now, the echoes of her songs, performances, and impact still ring loud across the halls of country music. Please tell us which of Barbara Mandrell's songs you love the most and why. Don't forget to like, share, and comment below. Mandrell chose something rare, peace, and in doing so, she established a legacy that will never fade. If you liked this video, please subscribe, share it, and watch the one that appears next.